Welcome to the Champion Within podcast, your go-to spot for unlocking a winning mindset. Whether you're an athlete chasing greatness, a parent cheering from the sidelines, a coach leading the charge, or an educator shaping young minds, this pod party is for you. Hey, if we haven't met before, I'm Kate McCauley, your pod party host, former educator turned mindset mentor. I get to meet people where they are and get them to where they want to go. Expect awesome guest conversations with athletes, some solo chats to level up, and always leave this pod party with quick, powerful strategies to help you and your crew push past limits, embrace challenges, and crush goals both on and off the field. Let's tap into the champion within, because greatness is just a mindset away. In today's episode, I chat with Rico, host of Why We Move. You're going to love this conversation. We talk about the discovery of the vibrant world of social dance, how he literally was pushed into it. I love how Rico is putting the question out into the world, why do you move? Lean in and listen to this one. Rico not only shares all about this secret society of social dance, he also is dropping epic wisdom that you can use in so many different areas of your life. Today, I get to hang out with someone who I met at a podcast event. Sometimes when you're going to these events, you have no clue what you're getting into, and you think, I'm just going to show up at this event and see where it takes me. That definitely happened at this podcast event in Philly. Rico and I happened to start talking about both of our podcasts. As he was talking, there was just something about Rico. I knew that season 3 was going to be about movement and people that do things related to sports, movement, exercise. I think probably my third sentence to him after our brief introduction was, I need you to come on my podcast. Today I get to chat with him. We're going to hear about his journey. You're going to have a lot of wisdom that you're able to steal from him. Rico, how are you today?
I'm great. Thank you for having me on the podcast. Super excited to be here, Kate.
I'm excited to hear about social dance and how you ended up in this space. Tell our listeners a little bit about who you are right now, and then maybe we'll go back to how you ended up to this place.
Sure. I feel like who I am right now can be summed up in one word, and that's just crazy, because I've just been kind of everywhere right now, but all good things. To go back in time, I think, explaining my background in this, I've been social dancing specifically for 9 years straight. Give or take a few months in COVID, or maybe even like a good amount of the year when COVID happened. Essentially just been social dancing for the last 9 years. Really started this podcast about a year and some odd months ago. The podcast is basically about everything that's involved in salsa, bachata, zouk, kizomba. And essentially we're going to explore more into West Coast swing, into Argentine tango, into ballroom, into all kinds of different dancing. But right now, what is kind of the hype is salsa, bachata, zouk, and kizomba, which you see a lot of festivals around the world, congresses, workshops, dance studios and classes, basically speak on the whole world of social dance, the ins and outs, tips and tricks, the good, the bad, the ugly, and essentially stories from folks who are either social dancers, they're DJs, they're organizers, they are promoters, or even performers and instructors as well. Bringing in a good amount of folks who, into the mix, who have a lot of these experiences over the years that is very unique to each and every one.
I'm going to admit to you right now, I know what those types of dances are, but when someone hears social dance, what is that? So someone who's listening to my podcast right now, if they're like, what exactly is social dancing? Tell people a little bit about, if they saw on social media or hear us chatting and they say, well, what's the social dancing if I want to try it? How do we even get involved in this? And what is it exactly?
Great question. I think everybody has probably witnessed at some point in their life. A majority of folks have either witnessed it in person, definitely on social media, or even have heard of somebody in their life, maybe a family, a friend, or relative, or a friend of a friend of a friend who probably goes out to these kinds of things. But social dancing essentially is the act of two people coming together and dancing in public in more of not a routine or choreographed per se performance or whatnot, but it's more of like an activity that you do together, that you both know how to dance specifically those styles of dances, but come together and are able to create some sort of unison type, for lack of better terms, again, performance in a way. And that's through salsa, bachata, zouk, kizomba, and essentially is a connection that you create with somebody. It's more than just what you see probably also on social media or anywhere out of like solo dancing, like hip hop dancing or crumping or contemporary or even pole dancing. That's more in like a solo type setting. But salsa, bachata, zouk, kizomba, it's all danced with a partner. So it's partner social dancing.
Very cool. And if somebody wanted to get into social dancing, I know you and I are in the Philly area, but from what I've been seeing, you do this in a lot of different places. My listeners are all over the place. How does someone say, okay, I want to learn how to do this social dancing? And then where do you find the space, or are there different venues that hold reoccurring events for social dancing? Or do you just go out to a bar and happen to say like, oh, people are doing this? How does it happen for people?
That's an age-old question that still, unfortunately, is not quite answered in a solid way because it just differs from place to place. And so I wish I had a good answer, but I will say that one of the surprises that we're working on with Why We Move is creating it as a more central platform, per se, for people to kind of understand that information. And so the best way that I can recommend anybody who's starting social dancing or maybe are interested or they're beginners looking to get more experience, or even folks who are have been into dancing and just want to know more places to go, is essentially diving deep into what is a big platform right now is Instagram. It's a big resource. So folks who are organizers, promoters, DJs, they'll probably do a good job of posting flyers and posting on their stories and kind of keeping up to date on stuff like that. Specifically here in Philly, there's a good amount of DJs who post regularly, which is a great thing. There's also the Social Dance Calendar, which is a website. I think it's called the socialdancecalendar.com, which I believe still needs a little bit of work as far as updating goes, because there are some events that live on there that just, don't happen anymore, or, because it's just the nature of things. I think the world of event space is very confusing because weather dependent. It could be because of some venue space closing or some regulations being broken and whatnot. It's a little bit of a crazy, chaotic world in a way to try to find, which also kind of adds to the secret of it in a way. I like to compare social dancing events much like what rich folks might attribute to like playing cricket or playing whatever fancy games that rich folks play or whatever. But it's like kind of like a secret society thing, which is a beautiful thing, but also has its pros and cons. It's there's not as much access to it. There's not much information on it, and so with this podcast, we're on that mission to create social dancing as a more accessible, more welcoming, and a more safer place for folks to join.
Well, I kind of like that it's a little secret society. I think that draws people in a little bit, because then it's, oh, I want to get involved in that. Tell us about Why We Move. I've heard you mention it a couple of times, but where did this idea come from? I know you said you were dancing for about 9 years. How did you start dancing? And is that why You Move happened? So tell us a little bit about your journey into dance and to Why We Move. I think that was like 5 questions. Tell me how we got to where we are with Why We Move.
The who, what, when, where, why, and how of Why We Move. Awesome. Great question. This podcast is a very selfish thing, I like to say, because I'm just a dude who really loves dancing, who has explored so many different scenes and has met so many different types of people who have really gotten me in places with opportunities, with connections that I can't say that I would have had access to if I didn't dance. I look at dancing as this crazy, again, chaotic world that has launched me into a personal development journey. It all started with my cousin back in Mexico, in Guadalajara. His name is Chuy Jesus. And he brought me out one day when I was, I think, 19 years old, and brought me out to a social dance that was in a place called Plaza Chapultepec, which is kind of like an outdoor area where college students in the nearby university in Guadalajara would come together on a random Tuesday night and just put up speakers. The DJ would show up, and then randomly, almost like flies to a piece of rotten fruit would just kind of come together and just start to move their bodies. And so,
Cool.
yeah, so he took me there, and he basically pushed me, like physically pushed me to the dance floor to dance with one of his friends. And I was like the shyest dude ever. I could not explain to you the amount of nerves I would probably have had if I had gotten invited to this podcast if I didn't dance, because it was just, I was just so shy. I was just like reserved and so closed off to the world. And at that moment, I realized I really sucked at this. And the patience that woman had when I was dancing was just unbelievable. And so I left that social. I actually grabbed them by the shirt tie, and I was like, "Listen, this is not going to ever happen again. I'm going to go back to the States. I'm going to learn how to dance." And literally 9 years later, or 8 years later, I got the idea of the podcast because just over time, just seeing that I grew so much in my confidence and my self-development again, and just like my ability to socialize with people has started with dancing and has been almost like a low barrier to entry activity that has also given me a lot of life and energy. I think being out, in a crowd where it's super dark, there's lights, loud music, you kind of have to practice a lot of these nonverbal types of communication and understand your self-awareness and your body awareness as well to be able to move, to be able to communicate with somebody, because the dance is communication. And so I can go down the rabbit hole of the list.
I'm thinking of all of these different things related to mindset right now. And I know why I wanted to talk to you, because, you're giving off that vibe, obviously, when I met you. So there's so many things I want to pick apart, but let me start back with your cousin taking you to that dance event, which thank goodness he did, right? Because now here you are. And selfishly, I'm glad because I get to meet you and all the other people. And I'm going to say that when I look at your Instagram, those who haven't followed him yet, we will drop his links and he will share by the end of this episode. But he does something, Rico does something where he says, "Save me a dance," and puts his hand out, and you feel like you're literally with him, that you want to go take a dance with him. And for you to say that I was so shy, this is not something I would ever do, and I had to figure out how to do this, is surprising to me, because when I see you now, you come across as very confident. But I think it's important for people listening to know that isn't how it all starts. And it usually isn't like that for any journey. When you start something new, we all are beginners. I think that that is something that people can take from this, because I know for me personally, I love dance, and I would not consider myself a dancer, a trained dancer, but I put dance into everything I do. Before I come on a podcast, before I go to a speaking event, I put on music and I dance. If I'm getting ready to go out, even if it's just to take my kids somewhere or to go out to dinner, I have music on and I am dancing. I always throw dance in when I am teaching other people how to tap into mindset. Music and dance is something that really, and it's, science backed, that it can change your mindset. When you were that guy and you were feeling shy and you grabbed him by his shirt and said, "This is never going to happen again," I thought you were going to say, "I'm never going to dance again." But instead, what you said is, "I am going to learn how to do this." What happened there for you? What kind of mindset shift? Is there some sort of like mantra you use? Do you use visualization? How did you go into that, from that shy version of Rico to becoming that guy on Instagram who puts his hand out? And those who haven't seen it, you got to go look at it, because you're going to say, "I need to go learn how to dance," and he's going to save a dance for me once I figure it out. So how did you get there? What kind of mindset shifts did you have to go through?
Out of complete honesty, I was pissed. I was pissed that I was just like, I could not do the skill. I was just almost infuriated with myself that, and this is where I'll explain. I think a little bit more of a background is I grew up with music in my family. Like my mom, every Saturday, Sunday morning, when she wasn't working, she would just blast the music and we would clean and we would just do activities, even at family reunions, quinceañeras, parties, anywhere, there would always be music, and mostly like salsa and cumbia, of course. And being in the region of Mexico where we're from, cumbia is a big thing. And my mom, back in back in the day, she was a big salsa dancer along with my abuelita, my grandma. And she would always be dancing. You would never catch her not moving or grooving, even if it was just as simply as like washing the dishes or like
Right.
looking at the newspaper, whatever, she'd always be moving. And so I almost felt like trapped in my body when I realized that I couldn't move, that I felt almost like it was something in my culture, something in my family that ran so deep that I almost was mad that I couldn't express that. What initially started as anger actually came as a liberation. I realized that I can move. And once I realized that I could move, it's like I could do whatever. If I could learn the skill that I thought was just pure talent that I would see on Dancing with the Stars, or I forget the actual TV show that my mom would put on, but it was about, it's like a Spanish version of Dancing with the Stars. But
Okay.
I would always just be so intrigued with that. Growing up, I couldn't do that. When I did, I'd still cringe at videos that my mom took of me at parties where I was just two-stepping. I don't know what the hell I was doing, but
Okay.
It basically gave me motivation to understand that if I could do this, I could do whatever. And from that point on, I just applied that same principle to almost everything. I graduated college with the first in my family with a major in biology and a minor in chemistry. I went on to working for one of the bigger hospitals in Portland, working for one of the bigger airlines, doing video and photo now for the last 5 years, which is my main profession, videography and photography, but all from YouTube and all from just trying. Where, again, all these things were what I once thought people were just innately talented for. They were just born with this talent. So like, there's no way I could have done that. Same way I picked up the guitar, same way I picked up longboarding and skateboarding and surfing and all these things. It was very liberating to understand that it started with this simple thing that I grew up with, and it evolved into so many different skills and so many different aspects of my life that I now really love, because I understand that I'm always a student and I can learn anything and I can do anything.
Oh, I have to jump in there. I am always a student and I can learn anything. For my listeners who are paying attention right now, you need to stop, rewind, play that again. I am always a student and I can learn anything. Rico just listed so many different things that he is involved in. And I got to admit, I did some stalking. If you follow my show, I always stalk my guests. And I did some reading and some different things that I found on Google. I'm on Instagram. I do all that kind of stuff. My guests,
I hope not bad things, right?
Show up here. What's that?
I said, I hope it was all good things.
It was all good things. I saw something when you had mentioned my main career, that you had grabbed a camera thinking, I can learn how to do this. I think so many people think they see you, or maybe they see me, or different people, athletes, even if you're not a professional level person, they see someone doing well and they think, well, I can't do that because they must have this, that, and the other thing. But Rico just said for you, my listeners, that if you let yourself be a student, you can learn. And, you have to just keep going back and trying again and again. With that, Rico, when was a moment for you where you thought, you know what, I'm actually getting pretty good at this dance thing, and I maybe want to go out there and start this podcast, Why We Move? Did you have a moment where you thought, I'm pretty good at this?
The first moment, if I could really rewind and think about that kind of spark that I had, was the first time somebody actually messaged me after a night of dancing, and they found me on Instagram, they added me, and they were like, hey, listen, I just wanted to reach out and say, like, I had a lovely dance with you. You made me, and this is, I think, the exact words that they said. I might be paraphrasing, but she said, you made me feel seen on the dance floor. That was just super special to me. My main goal with creating this podcast, with doing the work that I do in video and photo, with interacting with my friends and family, has always been driving and delivering impact. I felt the most rewarded in that moment when I saw and I opened that message, because I felt like I was just dancing. I was just having a good time. I was just like living, in the moment and being present and just trying to be that person for the other person and hoping that they would reciprocate that. And it was just so nice to feel, in a way that she felt seen, I also felt seen. And so that almost carried me into thinking of every dance as an opportunity to connect with somebody. And that's what I preach about every time. And every single time I go out and I leave my house and I ask somebody to dance, I'm always looking for presence and connection in that moment, because it's a very intimate moment with somebody. You're basically trusting them and they're trusting you to, one, not get hurt, for two, to respect themselves and their body, and three, like, have a good time and lead a good dance in a way. And so there's so much packed into that moment that lasts 2 to 3 to 5 minutes, depending on the song. If it's a live band, like we like to joke around, it's probably never ending because they're just going to play that nonstop. But all in all, to say that there's a moment that you can deliver that kind of impact. And so that moment for me was those messages. And I'm not trying to boast here, but they do come. And even now and actually I just got one last night because I was out last night. But it's just very special to be told that, and to be reminded, like, hey, there's importance in what you're doing.
I gotta just say, before we move on to anything else, I want you to boast. I want everyone to boast. And I know it feels uncomfortable for people. And the people I work with, whether it's one-to-one in a workshop or if I'm like at a speaking engagement, they always are taken back by that, because I think as humans, we're always told, don't be egotistical, don't be bragging about yourself. However, if you don't tell people that, I think you're being selfish, because there are people that want and need to be seen. And if you can do that for someone, what a gift. So boast away. I say put it out there. I'm here for it. I think that if you don't, people just don't know how amazing it is. So I say keep celebrating. Thank you for sharing that. What an amazing thing to get that message from someone. I do like to tell people, when you receive a gift like that, whether it's that being seen or someone does something little or big for you in your life, sometimes the other person doesn't realize it. Like you had mentioned, you're going through a personal growth journey through dance and just learning different skills. Other people sometimes don't realize the impact that they make on us. So when you can tell someone else that, it's huge, because then we realize the things that we're doing is purposeful and that we need to keep doing it. So thank you to whoever that was that sent that first message, and yesterday's messages are probably going to come in to you today. Keep sending those messages, and not to say like, let's like blow up his head and be like, oh, you're so great. But just to, remind you, because it is hard when you're doing things like this, when you're doing your podcast, when you're going out and trying to spread the word about social dance, especially if it's like a secret underground society type thing. Some people, and this happens for me in the world of mindset, where they're thinking, what exactly are you doing? But if you don't, keep putting it out there, people don't know. So just had to throw that in there, a little mindset coaching from me there. So tell me about what the podcast is doing right now and what you see happening in the future for the podcast.
Absolutely. I see social dancing as the next big thing, as the next, whether it's like run clubs, like, CrossFit in a sense, in a way that like it's more like community focused, obviously not too crazy fitness focused, but it's a thing that people are looking for, again, with connection. Since the pandemic happened, people have lost that in a way and have kind of isolated themselves voluntarily or involuntarily. And events, places where they're able to meet people socially and develop a skill and just release the endorphins in your body that you probably didn't know you could, through just movement, it's like an all-in-one combination. I'm very excited to share that the next wave of what we're creating with Why We Move is centered around connection and centered around bringing more opportunities for folks to kind of learn about it, to bring more awareness, and essentially have a safe place, and a welcoming place to practice that and to learn about it. It's a very exciting time. I've been working really hard these last 2 months, kind of took a break from actual episode recording, and wrapping up season 2 to kind of roll out with this new improved show. And so there's going to be a lot of different kinds of content. For the last 2 seasons, I've just been doing interviews, with guests, either in a group setting, individually, maybe 2 or 3 people at a time. But we're going to start to incorporate a lot more different styles of content. I'm actually going to be traveling across the nation and probably across the world for some that I have potentially booked in November and December, to get just different takes, different opinions, and just different stories along the way. The other thing that we are doing as well is we're highlighting local areas for people who are traveling and going to a different city, say on a workcation per se.
Right.
They'll be able to have a platform to be able to see where, again, to the point of one of the earlier questions, where to go social dancing, who to trust for social dancing, where to go learn in studios if they want to drop in on a class, or if they're moving there, kind of build that repertoire up of folks. Because the other thing that I do focus on the podcast is creating community, and that's been the forefront of it. I'm very excited to boost that up, especially here in Philly. I'm still not done. And so there's so many more people to highlight and so many more stories to count.
Hey, I'm interrupting this podcast to tell you that it is time to help your child turn their nerves into confidence. If you are tired of trying to convince them to see themselves through your eyes, you need to download Turning Nerves into Confidence. I created this resource exactly from what I teach my athletes in workshops. I give the same thing to my own children. These are easy to use tools to help your child develop confidence boosting strategies. If you want your child to embrace challenges with a growth mindset, go click on the worksheet and start using it today. I think this is really exciting for you. I love all of that. And I can tell you, working with event planners, I had a guest on my show who plans events all over the world, and he will actually go to the city ahead of the whole event and basically, like what you're saying with the dance, we'll tell people all of the great places to go for all kinds of different things. But I think people like that. You're planning it out for them and saying, this is exactly where we were. This is why it's amazing. You need to stop in there if you love this social dance. I think that is going to be a really cool part of your podcast, because it is literally a map for people. If you're here, stop in this place. I know I personally, when we travel, I love to see what people have done. And I like to hear from the locals who are there. So, when you're at a place and they can share about the events that happen, if they're planned or maybe they're reoccurring or maybe once a month or a big time annual type thing. I think that'll be cool. The idea of you traveling and doing the dance and touching base with different people and events there is going to be a pretty cool thing. People are going to be saying, where is he going next? I think that's going to be a fun thing to, watch your journey. That's exciting. I'm excited for you. Let's say one of my listeners right now are leaning in thinking, maybe I want to try some of this social dance, but I'm a little nervous because I don't really do that. What advice would you give them, and how could they have a mindset shift to get out on that dance floor and start?
The best piece of advice I can give for folks like that, I would say, is the worst thing that anybody can say to you is no if you ask them to dance. And at that point, there's a room full, even like a plethora of other people that you can ask. And so no just means next opportunity, N-O, next opportunity. And so
I love that. That's amazing.
A little bit of
everyone should be stealing that. That's great.
And essentially it's something obviously is not, you can't expect yourself to be good to right off the bat, like it's literally the first time you ever step on a dance floor. It helps for folks who really, understand that, like, again, I've been dancing for 9 years and I've been socially dancing really for a majority of it, probably on average 3 to 5 nights a week. And so however many weeks, however many socials times that is probably over 1,000.
Right.
And on top of that, all the workshops and the festivals and the different weekenders that I've been to, it's just been so many. And like, I started sucking, you know what I mean? Like I can't wait to bring my cousin on the podcast, because he's going to tell some
you need to tell that story, definitely, because I think people will appreciate it, the people who are starting out. But it's a great story and people can relate to that because, like you said, we all feel like we suck in the beginning. So to hear someone be honest about that, and I'm sure your cousin has some more details to share that you're not even telling us. So I think that'll be a cool episode. So I think that's great advice. Definitely steal the NO for no, next opportunity, just to take action and ask. So I love that advice that you're giving there. Yeah. When you're thinking about dance and what it has done for you in your personal growth journey, what do you think is a point where you felt like you were maybe at a low place and dance helped you come out of that, or, at least see something beyond that low place?
I want to even say that dance still continues to bring me out of low points. I experience them all the time as a creative, as just a human being. I think it's normal. I don't think you can really expect yourself to be happy all the time. Obviously, like throughout life, you're going to experience pain, you're going to experience low points. But dance for me has been a place where I'm able to release that. And whether it's at home and I just put on some music out loud and I just move my body a slight way, or even just like, you know, bobbing my head while I'm working, to being out and actually like dancing like crazy and sweating all night. Regardless of that, dance and that music, what it does is it activates that in my body and in my brain, really, to release whatever it is that I'm feeling and just kind of let the energy carry and move forward. I think there's never been, I want to say like 99.9% of times that I've actually danced, I can't say that I did not feel any better after, if that makes sense. Am I saying that right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that makes total sense. I love that. So I am always saying to people, it's not sunshine and rainbows. People see the highlight reel. They don't see the behind the scenes. For me, there's ups and downs every single day. Things go well and something happens and I'm like, oh, are you kidding me? I think it's so important to have a release, and maybe dance is that for some people and they just haven't discovered it yet. Maybe they don't have a cousin like your cousin to push you out there. If they're listening to this right now, give it a try. In addition to feeling that release, there's that dopamine hit that you will get. So that feel good chemical. For myself, if I go out for a run, doesn't matter if it was a sprint, a quick, long thing, I dance every time I come home. I put on like a different type of song when I come home, and I dance in my kitchen. My kids are like, here we go again. She's like losing her mind. But it is just a way to release that, like, oh, I thought I was going to die on that run, but I did it. And I'm dancing and I'm celebrating it. And it also like brings me down and it calms me. I think that is a great thing for people to try if you're feeling in a place where like, oh, and maybe it's a routine that you put into your day. I know Rico is telling you he does it all the time. You don't have to do it all the time, but try to put it into your day, or at least if you're feeling those like moments.
To add, like, we've been moving since the dawn of time. Like, that was how we celebrated. It's how we went through emotions of sadness. It's how we came together as a community. So just like almost like food, right? Food brings people together. It satiates you. It feeds you. It's the same thing. Dancing is just another form of that.
You're so right. If you look at little kids too, they will just bust out like dance moves wherever. They don't care. They're just dancing on the street, and everyone loves that. They're always like, oh, look at that. That's so great. Let yourself do that. Let yourself lean into that playful, fun feeling. We don't do that enough as we get older. We feel like, oh, we can't do that. All the shoulds and the supposed tos. But you're right. It has been a part of just humans forever that we dance and move our bodies. That's an important piece to remember. And your brain does those things. In some ways, there's weird things that happen that hold us back from even asking someone to dance, because your brain is programmed from way back in the day to keep you safe. Push through that a little bit. Is there anything that you tell people when they start going out there? You've mentioned a couple of times about safety and different things, making sure that you feel comfortable in your body and that wherever you're going to do the social dance. Now, I really didn't think about that until I started looking at your Instagram. I said, oh, that's a pretty good point. But is there any tips you would give someone for what they could do if they feel unsafe?
That's a great question. I think, again, with all the good and the great stuff that we've talked about dance, obviously there's a dark side to almost everything, like pros and cons. I will say, to answer the first part of the question, is dancing, it's a very intimate thing. And so unfortunately, there are people who show up to the space and are disrespectful, and they do things that just aren't really appropriate. You know what I mean? And so without diving too hard into that topic, because it's something that's, could be very sensitive and triggering, it's also a very important thing to talk about. And that's what I try to make a point in every episode, is that the best thing that I can say to really answer the question first as well is you have the choice of saying yes or no to anybody, right? And you ultimately control who touches your body or not, and who has your time, who you speak to, who has your attention. And so really thinking about you as the ultimate person who has the choice to put up a boundary or not. And I'm very happy to say that here in Philly, at least from the stories of other people that I've heard, I kind of witness on the dance floor, there's not too much of that. If there is, they're just quickly weeded out, and it's like a no thing. And either the security guard comes in, or the DJ steps in, or somebody from the community is like, "Hey, stop doing that." There are people who are just unknowing of like what kind of, in a sense, like what kind of behavior is appropriate or not. And so I think the best way to handle that is for anybody who is joining, anybody who is interested, who is starting, or beginners, just try to kind of create those ground rules for yourself first. If you feel like somebody's being inappropriate to you, you have the option always to say, "Hey, no, I don't feel comfortable with this. Let's stop." Or you can create physical distance with somebody. If they're like trying to get too close, you can actually legit just push them away and keep them at bay. Right. If you feel like it's just crossing the boundary too hard, you just say no and you walk away. That's it. Yeah. There's no hard feelings, no nothing. And that person can, eventually learn.
Right. Yeah, it's good to hear too in the Philly area that it's not a major issue, but I did hear it a couple times, making it a safe space in case people were wondering, what does that mean exactly? So I just wanted to make sure we touched on that a little bit there.
So, and thank you for bringing that up, because that's a very important thing.
I think that could be one piece that sometimes people get a little bit nervous about. Do I want to go do this? Feeling like, is there going to be some creep on the dance floor, really? That is, I don't want to be involved in that. You had an episode with somebody on one of them where they just were simply showing people, to put your hand out, like I think it was their right hand, and kind of just push them back. Like you said, create space, physically do that. And you learn how to do these things. You build the confidence over time. So that in itself, creating a boundary in all areas of your life is something that you need to do. Do you think that there's any areas for you that dance and the mindset, or just the lessons you've learned from the relationships and connections with people, or those boundaries, have carried over into other areas of your life?
Absolutely. I've learned, again, to be more confident, to learn how to approach people and not feel scared. I've learned how to essentially like read body language as well, because there's, again, with dancing, like you don't talk, right? You just nod your head. You first ask, obviously, if that person wants to dance, but then for the most part, you shouldn't be really talking and saying, "Okay, left turn here, right turn here," dipping. Right. You know what I mean? Like, there's not really much of that. And so learning nonverbal communication is a big soft skill. I think the ability to read the room and kind of feel the energy of what's being brought into that event, kind of to the point of what we were talking about, safety, just feeling kind of ready to experience that world, and also openness, I would say, is really what I want to say, is being open to opportunity, to meeting new people, having that social skill up, and probably drinking a lot of water, because I sweat a lot and I've learned about hydration.
Yeah. I think those are all great skills, and they're all learned skills. Some people think that people are born confident, or that they know how to network. That is not true. These are soft skills, and they can be learned. You have to learn these skills because it's going to be expected of you. So dance could be a cool way to do that.
Dance relates to so many activities in my life and so many pieces in my life, in development and also, other areas. I trained mixed martial arts, and I started with boxing, and then I moved into Muay Thai, and then I moved into jiu-jitsu. Now I train the three separately. I don't really do mixed martial arts anymore, but I still train all those three. There's always a piece and a component that I take from one and apply it to the other. Dancing, I think, is the same thing. You apply a certain move in salsa, and it applies to bachata, and then it applies to zouk, and then kizomba, and then everywhere the webs kind of connect. And same thing with sports. With surfing, for example, I have more balance in my body because I know how to manipulate my body in a way where I can stand on one foot and my arm extended. And I could do that in surfing as well now. In skateboarding as well, again, another piece of balance and component that applies to when I'm spinning, when I'm dipping, when I understand my body mechanics that kind of help me elevate to the next thing or to another area of my life, be it weightlifting, running, yoga, whatever it may be. It really does show you that things are so much more interconnected than they might be. Like every single discipline really relates to another thing, and it's hard to have one thing without the other. The only person you can compare yourself to is yesterday's old self to make way for a better tomorrow self.
I love that. I think that it's a great point that you're not comparing yourself to the other dancers. And although athletes may be looking at another team, or if some of my track runners are trying to maybe score points for their team and beat maybe somebody who's like a really fast sprinter on another team, they're also looking at their own personal records and how they do and competing as a team, but individually as well. If they're constantly comparing themselves to other people, it's going to cause mindset blocks and things like that. So you have to be aware of it to improve. And you also need to make sure you be mindful and just focus on you, because you can't control. We call that the uncontrollables a lot. You cannot control what those other people do. And
there is room for inspiration from other people, right? Like what would be in the athlete world, your competitors. But it's all also the quote I like to think about is like stealing like an artist. It's really, art is not ever original. It's always from something. So like you are inspired by this person, so you make this, and then the next person down the line was inspired by you. But reality, like you can't take ownership because you took it from somebody else, and it just kind of goes down the line. And so in that realm of thought, athletes can even look at this as, let me take inspiration from what my competition is doing, and really being detailed and specific of what is it that's giving them the edge over me right now, and what can I adopt from that skill set to be able to apply to my own, to then kind of come back and develop some more competition on their end.
An athlete who wants to be successful is willing to see that. Mm-hmm. Instead of saying they're better than me, or, they're willing to say, what are they doing that's working that I can put into my practice routine, my game day performance? Mm-hmm. I think that's a great point. Thank you for throwing that in there. Before we get to our final question that I ask everyone, is there a place that people can follow you? Maybe some social media links or a website if people want to connect with you about social dance or some other things that you're putting out into the world?
Absolutely. You can find Why We Move, or even my page there on Why We Move Stories on Instagram. Unfortunately, Why We Move was already taken. But Why We Move Stories everywhere. Either we're Why We Move on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts will be up soon. Our website is launching as well, whywemovestories.com, and Instagram at Why We Move Stories.
Nice. I will put all of those links in there. I'm sure people will definitely want to connect with you. You dropped a lot of wisdom here today that people are going to want to keep following. And I'm telling you, when you watch these things on Instagram and you click maybe to see YouTube in different places, you are going to be inspired to maybe start in your kitchen and dance, or get out there. If you see Rico and, he's saving a dance for you, so you want to get out there and dance. I think that it would be great for you to click that follow button. You will definitely be inspired, even if you're not in this space yet. Rico, is there anything, before I get to my last question, any advice or anything you want to throw out there that we didn't touch on that you think, I really want people to know this about either your podcast or social dance in general?
Yeah, I think the main thing that, again, is from the mission of, or the reason why I started Why We Move, that kind of double whammy there, is to, again, make social dancing more accessible, safer, and welcoming for people. And that really starts with yourself, going out and really being open, being honest, and being just a good person. It takes like $0 to be a good person. I don't know why it costs so many people that much effort to just go out and just be kind to people. And the way that it relates physically is just smile, make eye contact, have fun, and honestly, just bring a sweat towel, because you're going to be sweating a lot. And I always bring this everywhere.
I love it. I love all of that advice. Such great pieces of advice. You can steal each one of them and take the towel too, because you probably will need it. When I see these videos, you are definitely moving out there, getting a workout.
Credit to my friend Joe, who was on the podcast. That's where I'm stealing like an artist, is he was the one who said that. And so, and also bring another probably 2 or 3 pairs of shirts, because I always go out with like 4 of these black shirts.
Okay, cool. So you can switch, so you're not super sweaty the whole time. All right, cool. Well, we'll definitely credit Joe there. Give credit where credit's due. Okay, so I ask all of my guests this question, and we really just want to know, only for 1 week, because we do think you're pretty amazing, if you had the opportunity to swap lives with someone so you could absorb their mindset, their wisdom, the experiences that they have, who would you swap lives with and why?
I love this question because I just met this. I didn't really meet this person, but I got to see them live speak at an event, and that was Stephen Bartlett from the Diary of a CEO podcast. He has been an inspiration from the podcast from the get-go, and the reason why I would trade places with him, or if I could live his life for a week, is to see the level of attention that he gives. And I think that's what I really respect the most, is that he almost has a similar mission of delivering impact and delivering the truth. And that's something that I want to take. I always take inspiration from whenever I record these podcasts, or even wherever I find myself interacting with people. And so essentially just understanding his crazy amount of obsession with making everything just that 1% better is probably the most important skill I could ever learn from that.
Very cool. I always love people that suggest 1% better, because it's doable and it's great advice. Great choice. All right, Rico. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us today on The Champion Within. I know that people are going to want to go down to those show notes and click on the links, steal everything that you're putting out into this world. And I can't wait to see where, the journey takes you from here and all over the world. It sounds like. I'm excited for you, and I'm rooting for you always.
Thank you so much for having me, Kate. This has been a pleasure, and I can't wait to see you grow and succeed as well as you have been.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. Take care. And save me a dance.
Thanks for hanging out with me today. Whether you are going to coach, teach, cheer from the stands, or hit the field yourself, remember, mindset is everything. Don't forget to follow the show, because we all need a little extra motivation, humor, and some sanity in our busy lives. Go unleash that champion within you, one step at a time. I'm rooting for you always.